Okay, hello, and welcome to Mythophiles, where we love stories of all kinds. I am Duncan Gale,
I'm Cody Decker.
and today we are going to be talking about Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. So, um, yeah, this book is a book that I have, a little bit of a history with in terms of a couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I, we were going to San Francisco. We were driving there, and we were trying to find something to listen to in the car. And we thought, well, let's try and find a book that's set in San Francisco. And of the recommendations, this was one of them, and it was something that I'd kind of heard of before. And I thought, okay, well, yeah, that sounds interesting. And so we listened to it, and as as often happens for me with audiobooks, I feel like um, best case scenario, I get like 60 to 70% of it. And I felt like, yeah, this was one where, yeah, I really thought it was intriguing, a lot of it, but yeah, I didn't quite absorb all of it when we listened to it that way, and so I wanted to revisit it for that reason, because yeah, basically a book that I had encountered before that I thought was interesting, but wanted to understand it more. So that's my reason for choosing this book. So yeah, um,
I did the audiobook. I
mhm,
thought the narrator added a lot to it for me. Like his voice was just
yeah,
instantly like casually charming in a way where I
mhm,
was like, I don't really care about the plot of this story,
yeah,
but I'm enjoying my time with it. That was how the story went. I was like, I don't know if I'm
mhm,
invested in it, but I am like, I'm
right.
having fun.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can still remember certain things about the audiobook. Yeah, in particular, I remember the way that he did the voice of Mr. Penumbra. It's a very like distinctive way that he does it. So, yeah, yeah. This is one of the few times, yeah, that I did experience the audiobook as well. So, yeah. Yeah, I think either reading it or listening to it is a good way to consume this book. Yeah.
And it was nice just seeing like modern stories instead of like just like what's a new book. Like this is like if you were wondering what a new book is like, it's like casually just bringing up new stuff in a
Right.
natural way. It's like, oh, this could be a thing down the road, but it's just this is a new book that's written. Here's how it is. It's a very movie plot too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah.
And they reference books like The House of Leaves, which is a book someone told me to read, but I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I have read that book.
Oh,
It's an insane book. Um, but yeah, but worth doing. Um, yeah, and that's definitely a book that I don't know. Maybe there is an audio version of it, but I
no.
can't imagine how you would do it audio, because it's very specifically laid out in a certain way. And
Well, I think,
yeah,
and here's what you could do. If you were going to do for House of Leaves, you would have to
uh-huh.
treat it like those serial killer podcasts. So
Uh,
if you
mhm.
made a House of Leaves movie,
Right,
now I haven't read the book or looked into it at all,
right,
but
right.
if you were going to do that, you would have it be about someone reading the book. So if you could do it audio, but you would have the person saying like, "Oh, I found the book," and then they would read it when there were just chunks, but then be like, "Oh, I think I have to turn it," and then it would be about them solving it.
Yeah, yeah, that could work. That could work. Yeah, there's also another book like that by J.J. Abrams, actually, or I think J.J. Abrams like came up with the idea for it, but then somebody else wrote it, and the book is just called like S period, and the entire book, it's like this old book, and then people have also written stuff in the margins, and so it's a combination of like reading the book itself and then reading the stuff in the margins, and there's like two different stories going on that
Mm.
way. And yeah, that's another thing you could do that way. Yeah.
That's the fire alarm. I'm fine. Just wait a second. Okay. All right.
Okay. Um,
Um,
all right.
I like that thing to do for like based off a true story. They would have
Mhm.
based off of maybe an idea J.J. Abrams had.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Yeah. He gets first billing in
Yeah,
whatever he does, no matter what.
executive producer.
Yeah. Um, okay. So yeah. Guess we're done with the initial thoughts. We can get into it a little bit. Yeah. So Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. So yeah, this was published, yeah, in 2012, I believe it is. Yeah. So it's interesting because yeah, it feels like a very new book, but it's actually over 10 years old. But there's there's certain things about the technology in it that still feel very kind of new and current. Um, and actually, yeah, there are some ways in which this book maybe is almost kind of forecasting into the future a little bit. Like
Hmm.
I think there might be a couple of technologies in here that maybe didn't technically exist at the time and maybe still don't exist, but it's sort of like
Okay,
something that maybe could exist
that
very
makes
shortly. Yeah.
sense because when I started, I'm like, oh, it's new, and that's all I thought about it. And then I was kind of like, they're kind of really over explaining some stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that would make because it's like they're newer concepts.
Hmm.
But so it's also like I thought it was new because I just thought like, oh, they're weirdly, but like because the way they go into that stuff was still fun. So
Oh,
like
sure. Yeah.
again, like the whole time I was never like, oh, why can't they just get to it? But like
Right.
it was yeah, like wow, they're really explaining this algorithm thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Definitely.
like
Yeah.
when you have characters who in universe are doing it, it felt natural. So it wasn't even like an issue.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So the author Robin Sloan, yeah, I mean he's written a couple of other things. He actually wrote one book that's sort of like a prequel to this, and a couple of other things. But yes, he's yeah, relatively, yeah, new author on the scene here, and apparently I read that his inspiration for writing this book was from a friend of his mistakenly thinking, "Hey, I just saw this place that was a 24-hour bookstore," and like, his reaction being like, "Well, no, there's no way that actually exists, but what if it did?" And so I mean that's cool. I think it's like, yeah, this sort of germ of this idea that he expanded out into uh, this book. So
'Cause, yeah, that is the basic premise of like he's gonna get a job at a 24-hour bookstore.
right,
It is such a fun concept. And
yeah,
that you could go in so many directions with that alone. Like,
oh,
oh, is it a
definitely,
front for something in like in like a sitcom-y way where they're just like,
oh
who's
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
investigate a bookstore?
yeah. This would be a great setting, yeah, yeah, for a sitcom, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay, so yeah, this book, yeah, it's narrated in first person by a guy named Clay Janin, and yeah, and so he is sort of I guess you could call it a sort of typical millennial type guy who went to college and moved to San Francisco, and has some he's somewhat tech savvy. I think his background is sort of tech and art sort of coming together. Right? Yeah, yeah. I believe he went to the Rhode Island School of Design. I think that's mentioned as where he went, and so now he's moved to San Francisco, and he tells us that he started working at this startup called it's a new bagel. Yeah, 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 yeah. New bagel, um, which is yeah, like sort of app that serves bagels, and he was like designing logos and stuff for them, and he even wins an award for one of his logos and stuff. But then the startup quickly goes out of business, and so he is unemployed, and so he's basically trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life now. And so he stumbles upon this 24-hour bookstore while he's walking the streets of San Francisco with a help wanted sign. And yeah, and so he walks in, and he meets Mr. Penumbra, who is this charming but I guess eccentric old man. Really, yeah, sort of the kind of person that you would expect to be running a weird bookstore in San Francisco in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. Yeah,
If you've seen a movie in like the 80s where like the kid walks into a mystery shop and there's like an old
right.
man who goes, "Ooh, welcome." And it's
Yeah,
that guy. It's the wizard that like you walk into who's like, "Do you want to see the splendiferous
right.
um conundrums?"
Yeah, kind of like the guy who runs the store in Gremlins, or
Yeah.
the librarian in Neverending Story. Yeah, those sorts of characters. Yeah,
Which, because I didn't look up the plot of this before I started it, so I
right,
didn't know if it was gonna be a fantasy yet. But I thought like,
right,
oh, okay. So he's like a tech bro, and then he's gonna go to the shop of mysteries,
right,
and then which he does. But then I thought
right.
at some point magic comes into play.
Yeah, and although this is probably not quite a fantasy book, it's very closely allied with fantasy books,
Yeah,
as
it's
we'll see.
like
Yeah.
the essence of a fantasy story.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, basically, yeah, he goes into this bookstore, and yeah, and I think the first thing Mr. Penumbra says to him is something like, "What do you seek in these shelves?" You know, it's something like that.
Like whatever in your head, if you're imagining
Right, right,
like a magician librarian, every
right,
line
right.
he's saying it.
And the guy's basically like, "Well, yeah, I would like a, job, please." And Mr. Penumbra is like, "Okay, well, please tell me one book that you really like." And the guy talks about this book series called the Dragon Song Chronicles, which is not a real book series, but yeah, yeah. So he talks about it, and he talks about it was something that he loved since he was a child, and basically Mr. Penumbra is like, "Oh, that's great. Okay, well, yeah. So let's start you out here, and yeah, you're hired." Um, and
I did apply to libraries with that scenario in my head that they'd be
right,
like,
right,
"Do you like books?" I'd be like, "Yeah." They'd be like, "Well, that's it. You're hired." Like they
right, right.
want like degrees and stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if there were jobs out there where the only requirement is interest in the thing? Yeah,
Just like, yeah, have you read a book? I have.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Great. All
yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah.
you're gonna fit in well here.
hmm So, so yeah, so that's basically the setup, and then um, yeah, there's a couple of other like weird and interesting characters in this guy's life, in Clay's life, that he sort of introduces us to, who were interesting. He has a roommate who is a special effects guy. He works at Industrial Light and Magic, and he specifies that yeah, his roommate like doesn't actually do any CGI stuff, doesn't actually do computer stuff. It's all practical effects and so forth, and that's something that will actually play a part in the plot later on. But yeah, so I mean that's another interesting thing about this book is yeah, yeah, in this you know version of San Francisco, every person has some sort of weird, unique thing that they do. So yeah, he's got the roommate who does special effects. When he's working at the bookstore, there's basically three shifts at the bookstore. Mr. Penumbra does one, he does one, the night shift, and then there's another guy who he meets who is like a archaeology specialist. He's like an archaeology grad student and like knows about all this like weird arcane stuff from the ancient period and stuff. And so that's another interesting character that we made. But in terms of how the plot develops, so while Clay is working at this bookstore, there are a couple of striking things about the bookstore. One is that barely anybody ever comes in, ever.
Which is
to the
very
point.
abnormal for a bookstore.
Very abnormal for him. Well, yeah. I mean, maybe abnormal for a bookstore in San Francisco. Maybe in other parts of the country.
Okay, I'll be honest. I really have a hard time processing like what San Francisco is as like a city.
Yeah.
Like a huge bustle, and I don't. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot it took place there.
Oh yeah, no. I think that this is very much a. I mean, it has that feel. Yeah, and I've only been to San Francisco once, but it's different from other West Coast cities, and that it's not as it's more kind of it's more like an East Coast city. I found it's more kind of like New York where things are contained and stuff. But yeah, so basically, not that excuse me, not that many people come into the bookstore. That's one thing, and the other thing is that um, even the people that do come into the bookstore, most of them are not like normal customers coming in to buy a book. Most of them are these very odd people who have this like special membership card that they present, and they want and they're not coming to buy a book so much as they're coming to check out a book. And there's basically like two different sections of the bookstore. There's like the part up near the front, which is like a normal bookstore with books that you would buy that people would actually read. But then there's all these other shelves in the back with all of these weird books with weird titles. And Mr. Penumbra instructs Clay when he hires him, you are not allowed to look at any of these books, and you're not allowed to ask any of the people that come in about them or about what's in them or anything. Just they come in, they ask for something, you get it for them. But one thing that he is supposed to do is he is supposed to take very detailed notes about what the people look like and what their like state of mind is and everything. And so he's recording what's happening, but he's not allowed to like ask about any of it or anything. So
that I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Twin Peaks too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just that, and like the part where like your intro to this guy is, it's like, oh, he is this like competent tech person, but like
Right.
bad luck took him down to this where it's kind of like he's going here, he's already in this like weird little world, but like that's like it tells you how he got there, and then it's like he meets these people that are in that world. There's a book series called something, but it's like a I think it's called like The Gas Station at the End of the World or something like that. But it's a guy at a 24-hour gas station, and the whole book is just random people coming in and then like discovering a plot as it goes on.
That's promising. Yeah. The gas station at the end of the world, is that next to the restaurant at the end of the universe?
Yeah, you have to take a stop there before you go there. You can go to the bookstore whenever. But who is the holistic detective agent?
Yeah. Dirk Gently. Yeah.
Dirk Gently. Yep. Yeah, he can't. And then
Right. Well, yeah. So basically, this is a great setup, because it's like, obviously, all of these conditions that Mr. Penumbra lays out, don't ask about this, don't look at these books. I mean, it's just like gremlins, right? It's like,
Yeah.
don't feed them after midnight. It's like, well, okay, these are Chekhov's rules to be
And
broken, right? Yeah.
maybe with like the way he does the voice acting too, but just like that old
Yeah.
man, there's just a whimsy in an old man like talking to him like a child, just being like, but don't read these books, and being
Right.
like, okay, but like, yeah, it's like,
Hmm.
this is supposed to tease you into that world, and he's
Right.
getting sucked into, like, it is like an adult who's like in a child's plot line,
Right. Right.
where not in a bad, but just in how it's like, yeah,
Sure.
there's like whimsy and mystery to it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And another interesting thing, yeah, about Mr. Penumbra is that there are a lot of ways in which he seems sort of like absent-minded and stuff, but he actually he actually knows what's going on a lot more than you would think he does.
Yeah, you start getting
Which
ready
is
for him to reveal. He's like, "Who told you about the scrolls?" And then
right, right,
he's for 50,000 years, the weird librarians have guarded
right, right.
the gates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do that, but
He does things kind of like that, yeah. But yeah, yeah. So basically, like Clay's, yeah. So Clay has these friends, yeah, like the special effects guy, and then he has another like childhood friend as well, and these people start coming to the bookstore, and they're like, dude, you've never even looked at those other books. Come on, man. And one of them like takes the book off the shelf and like starts looking at it and is like, whoa, what is going on here? And so this basically like breaks the seal, and Clay's like, all right, I'm gonna look at it now. So and it turns out that yeah, these books, it's just like it's just like random letters. It's just complete gibberish. Yeah, there's just like shelves and shelves of these books with just like mysterious titles, and you open them up, and there's like, yeah, it's just gibberish. So
that
this is
that's like the point where it goes like, oh, okay, what is going on? That's
right,
when
right,
I was like interested, like when
right, right.
the plot got me.
Yeah, yeah. So that's intriguing. And what's also intriguing is like, yeah, there's at least there's a description of one of the people that comes in to check one of the books out, and he's like in this frantic state, and he's like, I must have this next one now. And so that's another interesting wrinkle here. So yeah, I mean, this book is, I think, pretty great at just like setting up this stuff that's like, okay, well, yeah, so what's going on here? I mean, it's yeah, it's very unique in that way, I think. So basically, yeah, the next major development is that Clay decides that he wants to sort of help out this business, and so he starts going on to Google. By the way, Google is like a big presence in this novel. There's a character in the novel who works for Google and
Everybody
stuff.
wants to work for Google. They're trying to get the big Google thing. They're gonna sell their company to Google.
That's right. That's right. And so yeah, he starts using some like Google business advertising stuff to help out the store, and then he also decides that he wants to like create a create a website for the store, and he creates this 3D model of um, of the bookstore. And then I think with the help of one of his friends, he decides to see if there's any kind of like pattern to the way that people are checking out books, and so he's able to like use this 3D model he's doing. Yeah, he steals one of the log books. So yeah, basically Clay is like, yeah, writing down all this stuff about people, and that's just like one of many books that people have been keeping the records of it. So he steals a log book, and this girl that he meets who works at Google, who also turns out to be a romantic interest for him.
Yeah, kind of the only point I was a little disappointed was just how straightforward that romance setup was.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a little cliche, but I guess
I
yeah.
I wasn't like mad. I was just like, oh, this is romance setup like plot line A, just
Right.
completely. It was, and then it was. I thought they were about to do a wild thing at the end, but then they
Hmm.
kind of did and they kind of didn't. But we can.
Right, right. So,
It was cute. They had a cute romance.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they have a meet cute, yeah, where she goes and yeah, she comes into the bookstore and she's like the only person who comes into the bookstore as a result of his Google ad. Um, and yeah, and so basically he steals this one logbook and takes it to Google, and she sets it up on this like book scanner that Google has, this like high tech book scanner that is able to like yeah scan the contents of the book and analyze all of the information, and so it's information about all the different people who are coming into the bookstore, checking out the books and everything, and so he's able to like take that information and like map it onto his 3D map of the bookstore that he's creating, and it produces this face. So basically, like yeah, all the different dots and lines of people getting books is in the pattern of this face that at first he thinks is the face of Mr. Penumbra, but then it turns out to be the face of somebody else. Um, but still, yeah, it's a weird sort of revelation that he finds, and
And that
so
he like one of the things he's doing as like a hobby is he's making like a virtual library, right? Where he's
right.
like
Mhm.
mapping it out and like, oh yeah, you can like, and it's like that's like what the metaverse I guess is supposed to be. I don't know if anyone is taking the metaverse seriously, but like they're like, look, you can go to a pretend mall while you're like you can go virtual shopping while you're at the beach.
Right.
And I don't know if people want that, but that's what they're working on now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I know that, yeah, when I'm at the beach, I don't want to actually be at the beach. I want to, I want to
Uh,
be virtually somewhere else. Yeah,
I
I
could be
mean,
grocery shopping right now.
right, exactly,
And not yeah, not even I don't want to pick from a list. I
right.
want to individually grab it. This sucks. I hate vacation time.
I want all of the inconveniences of shopping in a virtual setting.
To go. I,
Can you please make sure that there are like other people in the virtual setting that I like bump
bump
into and
into
like I
yeah.
have to like walk around and stuff?
Yeah.
Let's just make this as realistic as possible, guys. Come on, come on.
Have you ever wished you could just bring the day-to-day monotony of life with you wherever you go? You know, you sign up for premium and yeah, people can actually just kick you out if you like misbehave on like you can get kicked out of stores. You can have one guy that you kind of don't like and we'll make sure you're always shopping at the same time.
That's great. That's great.
No, it's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge.
Oh man, it's good stuff. So so basically, yeah, and I forget exactly how this part unfolds. I'm not, yeah, I'm not sure if Clay shows Mr. Penumbra this or if just Mr. Penumbra happens to like see it, but
I don't
basically like yeah,
yeah, the detail like from here it becomes a fairly cute romance story.
right,
Well, the yeah, they're like they're working on that, and then Mr. Penumbra comes. I don't remember that either. I don't remember when.
right. But yeah, so basically, yeah, at some point Mr. Penumbra finds out that Clay, yeah, well, actually, we find out that Mr. Penumbra always knew that Clay stole the logbook because basically, yeah, Clay's special effects friend creates this like painstakingly detailed facsimile of the logbook to put in to its place and stuff. But then Mr. Penumbra is like, well, yeah, no, I knew that it was fake because it smelled different or something, uh, something like that. But anyway, like yeah. Mr. Penumbra, as he finds out that Clay has been breaking these rules, he's like, that's fine. I would, I would trust you less if you weren't curious about this stuff. I mean, obviously, yeah, everybody's going to be curious about this eventually. And so Mr. Penumbra sees that Clay has mapped out this stuff and has created this face. And so basically, what we find out is that Mr. Penumbra is part of this secret society of people that are trying to like figure out stuff by decoding these different books and everything, and basically like finding the face of this guy is like the first puzzle of many puzzles. And for most people, it takes them like years to just figure out this first puzzle. But Mr. Penumbra sees that Clay has like used this computer program to figure it out in a day. And it just I yeah, I
I
really
wouldn't
thought
be
it.
happy with that. If
What's
I was
that?
if I was one of the people that had to like be
Yeah.
like you had to draw all that
Mhm.
and you had to like follow people around,
Right.
and then like this new guy, he entered it into a program.
Right.
Like
Mhm.
he took, yeah, I would not be happy as a member.
Yeah, and Mr. Penumbra's reaction to it, yeah, I thought was very interesting because it's basically like, yeah, at first he's like, "What, you you cheated," like, no, you did this wrong. But then he kind of like thinks about it more and is like, no, but you still actually did it. Yeah, no, you did it. Yeah, and that's I think part of like a big kind of major theme of this book, which is, obviously there's all this new technology, but there's also all of this old technology. I mean, obviously computers and stuff versus like, printing and books and everything. And there's a sort of conflict between them, but it's not always the conflict that you would expect because we find out that Mr. Penumbra is not he's not anti-technology. Like, I mean, and he sort of is open to the fact that, well, yeah, no, I mean, if you can use this technological stuff to like speed up the process, yeah, no, yeah, why not? But yeah, so that was an interesting part of it, I thought, and I mean, and another related thing to that, which I thought was interesting, is just the whole idea of the obsolescence of books ultimately, and how yeah, Clay and Mr. Penumbra are talking about that at one point, and Clay says, well, people still love the smell of books, and Mr. Penumbra has this great line where he's like, uh, as soon as people start talking about how they love the smell of something, you've lost them, and I thought that was great because it's like, because I mean I feel that way myself. I mean I'm very much a like traditional physical book kind of person, and I love going into bookstores, like old used bookstores, stuff like that. But I also recognize that you have to be on guard against like totally like fetishizing like this stuff to a ridiculous degree, and it's like, yeah, I mean, books are cool, but if other people are not as into them as I am, that's fine. However you consume a book is fine. That's my personal preference.
Well, yeah, and I've heard the well, you can smell them as the pro physical, because
Right,
the for reading, because it's like Kindle versus real for physical books, and
right,
like physical books, like you can smell them,
right,
and it's like that shouldn't be like the second thing you say about why you like physical books.
right. Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
not only am I not a physical book guy, I'm not a physical, I don't even read them. But and I'll tell you, and this is going to be more relevant because one,
hmm
there's a book called Heroes Die, in
hmm
which it's like there's a sci-fi thing, and like the government like heavily edits, and like there's no physical books anymore. So at any point they just go back and they'll just change books and they'll change writings back to, which is stuff that they kind of do now.
Mm-hmm.
I choked on my tea.
Oh no.
But there's a thing in it where like the character's trying to find a bit of information out of a book, and he looks it up online, and his dad's just like, "No, you idiot! Like you need to find a physical book because they can't change that. Like there's going to be evidence if that's been edited, but if you look it up online, it's going to be whatever they want you to hear."
Mm-hmm. Right.
Would have been better if it wasn't.
Well, so I mean, basically, as we find out more about this secret society that Mr. Penumbra is part of, and yeah, and it turns out that this bookstore is funded by this secret society. Yeah, it's called the Unbroken Spine, and it's basically based upon the work of this guy Minucius, who was who actually was a real person, and he was a book designer who lived around the same time as Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press, and yeah, and basically, yeah, he left behind this like encoded book that supposedly has like the secrets to life and everything, and so this society is all about trying to decode his book ultimately, and yeah, and it turns out that face that Clay was able to create with his 3D model, yeah, is the face of this guy Minucius, actually. Um, and so yeah, so that's basically what sort of the rest of the book is about how Clay kind of infiltrates this society in a certain way and tries to decode what this book is.
He also
And
has a millionaire best friend who
yeah, mm-hmm.
does a lot. It remind it like it's like a very good version of an Adam Sandler film.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah,
like where like the characters that are funny because they just talk like that. Like they're
right.
just, and then it's like, oh yeah, I got a friend who like is a billionaire tech guy who's that, and then that's it's like who's that guy going to be played by, and it's going to be it's Rob Schneider.
Right. Well, yeah, this billionaire friend of his wealth is based upon this software company that he developed, where basically the entire point of the software is to is to model the human body and the way in which the human body moves, yeah, and like the software is being used by like movie companies and stuff like that, and he's made a lot of money in that. But
Which
the
it's
primary
certain body
focus,
parts.
what's that?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
certain body parts.
but yeah, I mean, the primary focus, like the beginning of how all this software developed was, yeah, his friend and a bunch of other, pretty much all guys, his age, who work at this company. They are obsessed with figuring out how female breasts move and how to really like 3D model them in the most realistic way possible. So
Which
yeah,
is it is that's a huge part of the gaming world, and then like and
yeah,
how he says like we sell that tech to like other, and it's like yeah, like a lot of stuff is spearheaded by pervs who just wanted like one
yeah,
thing, and then it's
right.
like, oh, by the way, you incidentally made something that like everyone else could use if we just don't use these parts.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that's one of many, yeah, kind of, funny asides.
There's the
Yeah.
little joke, like the recurring joke with him is every now and then, like the protagonist will just mention that like his friend is talking to someone else about the jiggle physics,
Right. Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
just so it is like that's that guy's life. And
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
see him every now and then. He's just talking to someone else about how it's like, it's not a pervy thing. It's
Hmm.
the human body, and it moves in certain ways. And there's I looked it up just because of this book, but there are in fact volleyball games based entirely around that concept.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto. Uh, there are many scenes in that uh, video game that use this technology. Yeah, quite extensively. Yeah, and many other games, I'm sure. Um,
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. Yeah. Ms. Pac-Man. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and in a story like this, it's great to have one character who's a billionaire because it enables characters to do all kinds of things.
That's why, like, I like in my mind, it's got this sitcom setup because they're at one point they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"How are we gonna do that?" I guess I'll ask my billionaire friend if he can help us, and he's like, "Yeah,
right,
it's like they're writing around a budget, which is interesting. That like
right,
in universe, it's like they still like they need a like they're coming up with answers for money because if you don't,
right.
then it is like it gets
Yeah,
too cartoony. But
yeah,
they're also like billionaire best friend.
right. I mean, it's very much like, yeah, if you watch The Simpsons, right, in the early episodes of The Simpsons, they're like a financially struggling family, and like those financial struggles are a big part of the plot. They like limit things about what they can do, but then later on, it's just like, Bart asks Homer, "Hey, can I have a $1,000?" Like, yeah, sure, here you go. And Bart's like, "Do you even have a job anymore?" He's like, "I think it's pretty obvious I don't." Hey, let's
Yeah.
just break the
I
reality
like
entirely. Yeah.
I like the way Bob's Burgers handled that. If you saw
Mhm.
that show,
Mhm.
because
Yeah, yeah, I've watched some episodes of it. Yeah.
the first like whole season, they're like we're a struggling burger business. We need to get it
Right.
figured out, and then they'll have like these like get rich quick schemes, and then like as the show goes on, it just quietly stops being about them like trying to keep the business afloat because it's like, oh,
Right.
they did it. Like they that crazy scheme they pulled it worked, so they're doing fine now. So
Right.
uh,
Right.
here's what the kids do in their free time because the burger place is doing okay.
Hmm. Right. But yeah, so basically, once Mr. Penumbra sees that 3D model and everything, yeah, things kind of take a turn where he ends up like closing down the bookstore and just like leaving town. And Clay isn't quite sure what happened, but he and his friends kind of figure out that Mr. Penumbra has gone to New York City because that's where the headquarters of this Unbroken Spine uh, society is, and so they decide to follow him to New York City and kind of head him off at the pass there, uh, which they do, and at this point, yeah, we meet sort of not necessarily the villain, but I guess maybe the sort of antagonist of this novel, who is this guy named Corvina, who is a guy who and I mean, and again, this is like a classic like trope of stuff where he's a guy that like he and Penumbra used to be
Mm-hmm.
friends back when they were younger, but then they split off in their different directions, and
Now he's
I mean
now he's turned and he's hunched over.
it's very much, yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader sort of vibes here. Uh, yeah, and so yeah, and this guy Corvina, he's like the head of the Unbroken Spine. He's like the CEO of the sort of company that funds the Unbroken Spine. And it turns out the company that funds the secret society does it almost completely based on this font that was created by another guy who was associated with that guy Minucius back in the day, and so basically they like license out this font to to different people, and they're able to make a lot of money off of that, which Yeah, I don't know about the font business that much. I don't know how realistic that
That's
that
the
is,
like.
but yeah. Hmm.
There's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm unclear if this is satire
Right.
or if that's really the way things work. Because though that whole thing with jiggle physics, that can sound like satire, but that's
Right.
100% the way things work.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I just know from the relatively small number of uh more modern day video games I've played. Oh yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of how they're made.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I whenever a game comes out, I'm always like watching behind the scenes stuff, like,
right.
what's like every little detail I can about it. And every time they'll show you a skeleton of the characters walking, and you'll just see stuff bouncing, and it's like, they bought that. They buy like you buy like templates to
Hmm.
like piece this stuff together.
Right, right. Um, well, yeah. So basically, they go to New York, and they they're able to sort of go into the headquarters of the Unbroken Spine, and it's like there's this like regular office, but then there's like this secret compartment that opens up through like a bookcase or something, and you go down into this like dungeon area where it's all of these copies of the secret book by Manutius, the printer guy, and they're all chained to tables, and basically people go down there, and the most high up people in the society go down there, and they're constantly trying to figure out how to decode this book. Um, and and so what happens is that Clay decides to break in there at night and have this like portable book scanner with him, and he scans this book, and then he's going to take that book back to back to Google headquarters, and they're going to try to use Google technology to decode it. Um, and so all of that happens, and it turns out that Google technology cannot decode it, uh, which is interesting. But yeah, and I mean in that sequence, yeah, I mean there's a lot of stuff I'm skipping over, but it's all about like the entire resources of Google is completely dedicated to just doing this one thing. Like and there's uh, at one point he describes like there was a certain period of 10 seconds where nobody was able to access Gmail or something
Yeah.
because it was all dedicated to just this one thing, right?
And yeah, that was fun too because
Yeah.
they he talked about, yeah, 10 the whole set like that went noticed.
Right,
Like 10 seconds, like the whole world know for 10 seconds didn't have it.
right, right. Um, but yeah, and so basically, yeah, the rest of the book is about Clay trying to uh, decode the book on his own, which he ultimately is able to do, and it involves some stuff that is so going back to that series of fantasy books that he loves, the Dragon Song Chronicles. It turns out that the guy that wrote those was a member of this secret society as well, and it turns out that the key to decoding the book is in one of one of the books in that series and so forth. And I mean, we won't do spoilers of the full way that unfolds, but yeah. So basically, yeah, I think in terms of overall sorts of messages from this book and everything, yeah, I mean, we talked about how you know when he first was able to figure out that pattern of stuff and reveal that guy's face, whereas people were spending years trying to do that. Yeah, there's something frustrating about that. But what I found interesting was the motto of this secret society, the way that they greet each other. You do you remember what that phrase was?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's Festius Lenti, um, and and I had to look this up. My knowledge of Latin is very low. Lenti I could recognize as meaning like slow, but it turns out that Festius Lenti means make haste slowly. So it's like go as fast as you can, but not too fast. It's like a sort of intentionally paradoxical expression, right? Um, so yeah, so that's interesting, and yeah, and it seems significant that yeah, you know, there's a certain way to sort of do things that and maybe there are certain ways that seem faster than other ways, but maybe there are some ways that are so fast that they're actually not going to work, and that seems to be one one common theme that comes up in this book.
Yeah, and because and you when you have like an ancient conspiracy
Mhm.
get to the point where now like technology can make up for a lot of all these that's like when you watch any like movie where they go to a crypt and there's all these traps and stuff and it's like who built those,
Right.
but yeah, now it's like, oh yeah, in the future all that stuff's gonna kind of you can kind of just get rid of it really quickly,
Hmm.
which is what they're
Right.
saying about writing. They're talking about that for chat bots and stuff
Hmm. Right. Right.
and
Um,
artists.
hmm?
And yeah, for art, because AI can like just make it, and AI can make video
Oh
now.
yeah.
So I mean, video games that are going to be just run by AI,
Hmm.
where like, which I think would be cool, because you'll have
Hmm.
like companions that like have an actual AI and
Right.
stuff, and they're actually doing their own thing.
Hmm.
But then
Hmm.
it's going to be bad with every other aspect besides entertainment. Like just everything it's going to do to us, it's going to be bad. But
Well, yeah. Entertainment's all that matters. Once we relinquish control of our world over to our benevolent computer overlords.
will it be just like the humans in Wall-E right before the bad ending where they go
That's
back to
right.
Earth?
That's right.
We'll
Yeah.
just be living that sweet life in the mall and in
Yeah.
the stars.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this when we when I talked about the book last time. Is that yeah, this book has certain resemblances to Dan Brown novels like The Da Vinci Code,
Oh.
Angels and Demons. With yeah, I mean, all of those books are about like some secret society and stuff, and a lot of those, I mean, they're all seemingly based on actual real historical stuff that happened. Um, but in a way, I found this book to be a little more effective and interesting than those books for a number of reasons. One is that this book has a sense of humor about things. It's not just so deadly serious about everything. Um, it has a nice sort of lighthearted tone to it, and yeah, and yeah, and I think yeah, especially yeah, towards the beginning where things are being set up, the book does a great job, I think, of like having relatively low stakes, but still making you care about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Maybe there is something weird going on here, but it's and it's not necessarily something that's going to destroy the world or anything like that. But it's just like yeah. There's something a little odd going on here. So yeah, I thought the way that the book sort of set things up and then sort of was able to execute on that was very effective overall.
Yeah, I would turn it off every now and then just because like I'm no longer paying attention. Um
Right.
but it was just like, all right, time to start again, and then just like And I mean, they even talk about like it's about just trying to solve this mystery. Like people don't, you're not. They talk about that reporter Rivera or something.
Geraldo Rivera. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like he found it. He found like Al Capone,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. He opened up Al Capone's vault. Yeah,
and it's like he did it. He tracked it down, and it was empty.
it is empty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, yeah. Have you seen UHF? Weird Al's movie UHF.
A long time ago.
Yeah, there's a great scene in that where making fun of it where he finds Bonnie and Clyde's car and he opens up the glove compartment. He's like, "Aha, road maps."
Weird Al rules, man.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah,
I have watched the Weird Al movie like at
yeah,
least
oh,
10
yeah,
times. I just
yeah. It's great.
there's no reason to not have that movie playing. That
Oh yeah, yeah,
that's how this book feels. It's like I can just have it on and I'm
yeah,
like I'm just enjoying my time with it.
yeah. No, that's it's a nice, comfortable read. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, relatively low stakes ultimately, but still compelling throughout.
Yeah, yeah, it's also really good for just like yeah, it's not a high stakes plot, but like these are
Right.
characters, these are the setup, here's how it's
Hmm.
told.
Yep.
And it's like I don't like I'm not like at the edge of my seat, but I am like, well, what is it?
Hmm.
Like
Right.
you gonna tell me? Like, I'm not like I'm like I'm still sitting there waiting for it. I'm not like I don't care, which happens a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of
Right.
time, which is my big issue with generally with mystery plots is they're
Mhm.
like, who do you think did it? I'm like, I don't you just told me there was a mystery. That's a hard part for me, but I didn't have that
Yeah.
issue in this.
Yeah. 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 No, yeah. There is a mystery, and the mystery is solved. Yeah. I mean, the extent to which that solution will be satisfying to people might vary, but it does pay off. I think everything that it sets up. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just fun. I mean, it would be a very fun movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
This could very naturally be adapted into a movie. Yeah. Yeah. So looks like big thumbs up from both of us here.
yeah. If you're into mystery, check it out.
Yeah.
Now next week,
Yeah.
uh, have you started the book at all that I told you?
No, no, I haven't.
Okay, because here's the deal. I just watched The Black Cauldron,
Okay.
and it found out that's based off a book. Those books are really
Yeah.
those
Hmm.
books are pretty short. But
Okay. So
we'll
so
be
you
do,
want to do the Black Cauldron?
we'll be doing the Black Cauldron book, which is in the Priddian Chronicles.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's
which
Lloyd Alexander, right?
is that right?
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know
it
who
is.
wrote it.
Yeah, yeah.
It might be Lloyd Alexander, might be what I said, which is I don't know. Uh, but yeah,
One of the
the
two.
Black Cauldron was based off of that series, and the
Yep.
Black Cauldron movie was almost R-rated, and I didn't believe them because also that movie came out when the rating system was created. Like that's how old it is.
Well, well, not yeah, the movie is not that old, but it might have come out right when the PG-13 rating was
Oh
being
yeah,
produced. Yeah.
and there's deleted scenes you can look up, and it's like, oh yeah, that would not have.
Mhm.
It's also what if you've seen the movie, it's that
Right.
classic thing too, where someone gets a sword, and it's like, oh, so you're never gonna be
Right.
able to use that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so it's gonna
Right.
be a
Right.
lot of cutting weapons away. I hated that. I was rewatching Avatar, the series,
Hmm.
and just how like, oh, well, check it out, it's a sword made out of this. And it's like you're never gonna stab anyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, just stop making like if you can't have a cool sword in a story where you're not allowed to cut people.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, in the Ninja Turtles cartoon, Leonardo, uh, well, he uses his sword to like cut ropes and stuff, but
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's never. And at a certain point, uh, Michelangelo stopped even having nunchucks. He just had a grappling hook.
Because you know what, nunchucks is probably the most dangerous one of them to have because
Yep.
kids can play with nunchucks. They
Right.
can get you can get your hands on two pieces of wood, and so like we got to discourage this. Grappling hooks don't work, so we can give him that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw Bad Batch, and that's like a Star Wars show, based off
Oh
clones,
yeah. Hmm.
and
Yeah. I haven't seen that.
they play the way they play with the fact that it's like, hey, the whole premise is these are people that kill people,
Uh-huh.
but we can't show that, so like there's like I guess the canon in Star Wars is a blue laser is non-lethal. So
Oh really?
they have the team sniper like shooting people, and then you just see a shot of like a blue, and it's like, oh yeah, no, fine, they're alive, yeah. And then they'll like shoot a bunch of like stormtroopers, and then they'll show you like a second of them like twitching. It was like, oh, they're unconscious. See, no, yeah, everyone's alive, but
Oh.
they play with it so well that you can tell, oh no, that guy's dead.
Oh.
You would need the innocence of a child to think that they didn't die.
Right.
It's not like it.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, that reminds me of another thing, Ninja Turtle related again. This is from the live action Ninja Turtle movie. There's a part in it where like the guy right below Shredder, Tatsu, like he's really angry at the members of the Foot Clan, and he's like, "You have failed," and he like starts beating up on this guy and stuff, and he's like really beating him, and originally it was intended that he was going to actually beat the guy to death, but they but they had to alter it, so they did that, uh, and then like somebody off screen says he's okay, okay, yeah, so it's like just adding in that off screen thing.
Yeah, I really, I really, because you get to still be like, that guy's wrong, that guy's lying. So you
Right,
get like in
right,
universe, you're like, oh, he's dead, but
right.
someone thought he's fine. It's like, have you seen? There was like this cartoon where it's like a guy and a dog
Yeah.
getting like a ship, and it just crashes, and the
Uh-huh.
studio was like, you can't show a dog dying, so
Right.
they edited it, and then so in the show the thing crashed and the dog just walks off, and then they were talking, and then the people are like, okay, that's good, but
Right.
like they didn't ask any questions about the guy's just
Right.
dead. We didn't show the guy get up and leave.
As long as the dog's alive, yeah,
Yeah.
that's all that people care about. One more,
I we
one
yeah
more,
I
one
want a
more,
tier list
one
of
more story of this. There's a there's a Steven Seagal movie, and I mean Steven Seagal
mm,
already, it's going to be good. Uh, yeah, he did this movie, the Glimmer Man, and there was there was like one scene where he was supposed to have killed a guy, but then
mm.
later on, um, he's in a scene talking, and he just like ad libs. Oh, it's a good thing I didn't actually kill that guy. So the filmmakers had to actually go back and change a line in the scene before,
That's really good. I really
because
I really like that concept.
yeah, because like Seagal was all about, no, I'm not about violence. I'm all about nonviolence.
I would love you do a kids show like Stormtroopers, and you just see
Yeah,
everyone like getting cut with lightsabers and stuff,
right,
and then at the end be like, it's a good thing no one died in that war.
right.
And then it's like, okay, yeah, no, everything's fine. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Shout out, comment below your favorite instance of the way people get around people either
Right,
dying or not dying in a
right.
thing.
Mhm.
How are they gonna have to like do the absolute minimum to try to get that across?
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite is you just show a shot of all the bodies, and then you just hear like noises of them groaning, and then like body movements, because it's
Mhm.
like, oh, in theory they're all fine. But
Right.
then it's like, also, that is what people sound like when they're dying.
It's
So,
true.
so it's like for the censors, it's like, oh no, see, look, they're alive. But then now in the show, here's just a shot of them dying. And before we cut it, so like, here's a shot of the wound, which is how I thought, that's what I thought the point of those scenes were in shows. When they showed people like groaning on the ground. I
Right.
thought it was like, oh, here's the aftermath of that battle, just so you know, because it's like, people don't die fast. People die like,
Right.
it takes a while. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought like that's much more gruesome to show the fact that like, oh yeah, the heroes left them to die. Like
Right.
those and then but I guess it's to make you feel better.
Right. Yeah, no, they're still alive in horrible, agonizing pain. They'll be dead soon enough, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they will die,
But
but
you won't see that. Yeah.
not in this episode.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Okay, and you'll stay tuned, folks, for next week. And what's our outro?
Yeah.
You thought you almost
So-
got away with it. You thought.
So if you ever encounter a indecipherable book, just know that you can use the technology of Google and